On his first day in office, President Donald Trump declared his plan to impose a 25% tariff on all goods imported from Canada. The administration justified this move by pointing to issues related to illegal immigration and the surge of fentanyl entering the United States. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt emphasized that these tariffs would remain in place until Canada effectively addressed these concerns. Furthermore, the administration highlighted its goal to boost domestic manufacturing and lessen reliance on foreign products. The intention behind these tariffs was to encourage companies to relocate their production to the U.S., thereby creating jobs and fortifying the national economy. By late January, President Trump suggested that Canada could avoid facing the impending 25% tariffs on its exports by joining the United States as the 51st state. He asserted that such a transition would bring significant tax reductions and enhanced healthcare benefits for Canadians. Trump commented that Canadian citizens, if this change occurred, would benefit from a substantial tax break due to their currently high tax rates and would enjoy superior health coverage. He believed that the people of Canada would find this proposition appealing. This idea was part of Trump's broader approach to using economic leverage as a tool in international relations. He had previously indicated his intention to implement steep tariffs on Canadian goods, and on January 7, 2025, publicly announced his strategy to apply economic pressure to persuade Canada to merge with the U.S. Trump argued that such a union would bolster national security and reduce American spending on border enforcement. Canadian officials quickly dismissed the notion of becoming a U.S. state. Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland firmly responded, "President Trump, Canada is not for sale. We are a strong, independent nation and will never allow your health insurers to profit from Canadians." The U.S. and Canada maintain one of the world's most extensive and interconnected trading relationships. As of 2023, the total value of goods and services traded between the two countries was around $923 billion, with U.S. exports to Canada amounting to $441 billion and imports from Canada totaling $482 billion. This resulted in a U.S. trade deficit of $41 billion. Automotive trade remains a key element of the economic partnership between the two nations, involving substantial exchanges of vehicles and auto parts. In 2023, the U.S. imported approximately $34.87 billion worth of cars and passenger vehicles from Canada. That same year, U.S. exports to Canada reached around $32.84 billion, covering a broad spectrum of vehicles and automotive components. Passenger vehicles constitute a significant portion of this trade, with large volumes moving both ways between the countries. Additionally, in 2023, nearly half of all U.S. motor vehicle and parts imports originated from Canada and Mexico, 15% from Canada and 35% from Mexico, underscoring the integrated nature of North America's automotive industry. In response to Trump's proposed tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau unveiled a comprehensive plan to counteract the 25% duties on Canadian imports. Trudeau openly criticized the tariffs, warning about their detrimental effects on Canadian industries and American consumers. He noted that such measures would lead to increased costs for products like automobiles, lumber, and oil. During a press conference, Trudeau stated, "The American people are not our target. We hope that, in time, common sense will prevail." Ontario Premier Doug Ford also addressed the issue, mentioning that the province was considering curbing electricity exports to U.S. states like Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. In 2023, Ontario's electricity exports supplied power to roughly 1.5 million American homes. Ford clarified that while such measures would be a last resort, they were under serious consideration to protect Canadian interests. As part of its initial response, Canada planned to impose retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods valued at around 37 billion Canadian dollars. The targeted items included citrus juices, ceramic containers, and specific alcoholic beverages. Although the complete list had not yet been officially released, reports indicated that Canada was evaluating tariffs on a range of American products. These included orange juice, particularly from Florida, a major citrus producer, steel goods, which could impact U.S. steel manufacturers, ceramic products like sinks and toilets, dairy goods from states such as Wisconsin, and dishwashers produced in Michigan. In a move to strengthen his position against the U.S. tariffs, Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced a snap election scheduled for February 27, 2025, seeking a stronger mandate to combat the proposed trade measures. Ford warned that these tariffs could severely damage Ontario's economy, potentially resulting in significant job losses. He called on voters to support policies that included retaliatory tariffs on American products and the removal of U.S.-made alcoholic beverages from Canadian store shelves to safeguard the province's economic interests. Canada plays a vital role as a crude oil supplier to the U.S., accounting for approximately 60% of American crude oil imports. Introducing a 25% tariff on Canadian crude could disrupt this critical supply chain, driving up costs for U.S. refiners and leading to higher fuel prices for American consumers. Experts cautioned that such tariffs could unsettle energy markets and significantly raise fuel costs in the U.S. In reaction to President Trump's announcement that 25% tariffs on Canadian imports would take effect on February 1, 2025, former Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, who was campaigning for the leadership of the Liberal Party, proposed a set of targeted retaliatory actions. Freeland suggested imposing a 100% tariff on American wine, beer, spirits, and Tesla vehicles to pressure influential U.S. stakeholders and Trump's political allies. Her strategy focused on products from Republican-leaning states and associates of Trump, such as Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Freeland emphasized that Canada must send a strong message. Any economic aggression against Canada would be met with significant countermeasures. The proposed U.S. tariffs posed a serious threat to the highly integrated North American economy, where goods valued at roughly $3.6 billion cross the U.S.-Canada border daily. Prime Minister Trudeau pledged a firm but measured response, acknowledging the complexities and potential difficulties ahead. The U.S. relies heavily on energy imports from Canada and Mexico, particularly in the oil sector. In 2023, Canada was the largest foreign supplier of energy-related products to the U.S., accounting for 48.5% of total imports, valued at $26.8 billion. Mexico was the second largest supplier, contributing $24.3 billion, or 9.3% of total imports. As of November 2024, U.S. crude oil imports averaged 6.6 million barrels per day, with Canada providing around 4 million barrels daily and Mexico supplying approximately 453,000 barrels. U.S. refineries, particularly in the Midwest, are heavily dependent on the heavier crude oils imported from Canada and Mexico, processing about 70% of Canada's oil exports to the U.S. In 2023, the U.S. imported roughly 8 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day, with Canada serving as the primary source. However, the U.S. has also become a net exporter of natural gas, exporting about 13.6 billion cubic feet per day as of December 2023, with significant volumes shipped to Mexico. Additionally, in 2023, the U.S. imported around 38.92 terawatt-hours of electricity from Canada and Mexico, with Canada accounting for over 33 terawatt-hours of these imports. Notably, U.S. electricity imports from Mexico have steadily increased over the past decade, rising from less than 2 terawatt-hours in 2010 to more than 5 terawatt-hours in 2023. This cross-border electricity trade is supported by numerous interconnections between the U.S. and its neighbors, which are essential for grid stability and meeting regional energy demands. For example, the U.S. and Canada operate a highly integrated electricity grid, with power flowing in both directions to balance supply and demand. Although the U.S. remained a net importer of Canadian electricity in 2023, there was a noticeable shift during the fall when trade between the two countries became more balanced. This change was partly due to reduced hydropower generation in Canada, caused by drought conditions, leading to increased U.S. electricity exports to Canada during that time. The import of vehicles from Canada also reflects the deep integration of the North American automotive sector. In 2024, General Motors, GM, imported roughly 750,000 vehicles from Canada and Mexico combined, with a significant portion originating from Canadian manufacturing facilities. These imports feature some of General Motors' top-selling models, including the Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra full-size pickup trucks, as well as various midsize SUVs. Canada holds a crucial position within North America's automotive supply network. In 2023, vehicles represented the nation's second-largest export, valued at $51 billion US, with an overwhelming 93% destined for the United States. This figure highlights Canada's essential role in supporting the U.S. automotive market. Prominent manufacturers such as General Motors, Ford, Stellantis, Volkswagen, Toyota, and Honda operate key production facilities across Canada, contributing significantly to the supply of vehicles for American consumers. Many automakers rely heavily on their Canadian manufacturing operations. General Motors, for instance, produces Chevrolet Silverado heavy-duty trucks, electric vans, and V8 engines across 3 Canadian plants. Ford operates an assembly facility in Oakville, Ontario, which is set to commence production of larger F-Series pickup trucks by 2026. Stellantis oversees 2 plants in Ontario, located in Windsor and Brampton, where various Chrysler and Jeep models are assembled. Volkswagen has committed an investment of 7 billion Canadian dollars, approximately 4.9 billion USD, towards constructing a battery gigafactory in St. Thomas, Ontario, with production scheduled to start in 2027. The introduction of a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico would have far-reaching economic impacts. According to S&P Global Mobility, such a tariff on a vehicle priced at 25,000 USD from either country would add roughly 6,250 to its cost. Analysts from Wells Fargo estimate that the financial burden of these tariffs on Detroit's major automakers would be substantial. For General Motors, annual costs could climb to $5 billion with a 5% tariff, escalate to $25 billion at a 10% rate, and soar to $56 billion if the tariff reaches 25%. Ford and Stellantis face similar financial risks. As production expenses rise, automakers may be forced to pass these costs on to consumers, potentially suppressing demand for new vehicles. The mere threat of tariffs has already had an adverse effect on stock prices. For example, GM shares have lagged despite strong earnings in 2024. In 2023, Canada and Mexico jointly produced around 5.3 million vehicles, with nearly 4 million exported to the United States. Canada's auto industry is intricately linked with its U.S. counterpart, enabling seamless cross-border production and distribution. Mexico also plays a major role, contributing an even larger share of assembled vehicles and auto parts to the U.S. market. Approximately 86.9% of Mexico's auto parts production is exported to the United States. Automakers with a high percentage of their U.S. sales sourced from Mexican plants are especially vulnerable to tariff-related costs. This includes Volkswagen at 43%, Nissan at 27%, Stellantis at 23%, GM at 22%, Ford at 15%, Honda at 0% 13%, Toyota at 8%, and Hyundai also at 8%. These figures underscore the deep interdependence within the North American automotive sector and the significant disruptions that new trade barriers could cause. Beyond the automotive industry, the U.S. also heavily depends on Canadian imports in other key sectors. In agriculture, for example, the U.S. imports nearly $3 billion worth of beef from Canada annually. Proposed tariffs could lead to higher prices for these products within the U.S. market. Experts predict that such tariffs might raise food costs by up to 25% in certain cases, adding an estimated $185 per year to the grocery expenses of the average American household. Lower-income families would likely bear the brunt of these increases. The Canadian government has stated that any retaliatory measures would be applied evenly across regions, avoiding favoritism toward any specific province or industry. Minister of Natural Resources Jonathan Wilkinson emphasized that Canada's response would be designed to affect American interests more significantly than Canadian ones, while ensuring that no single sector or area faces an undue burden. If the U.S. proceeds with its tariff implementation, Canada is prepared to escalate its countermeasures, potentially targeting up to 110 billion Canadian dollars worth of American goods. This strategy is intended to exert considerable economic pressure in response to U.S. actions. Additionally, Canada is exploring the possibility of reducing energy exports to the U.S., a move that could have substantial consequences, given that Canada supplies roughly 20% of the oil consumed in America. However, this option has sparked debate among Canadian provincial leaders. For instance, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith opposes cutting oil exports, citing potential negative impacts on Alberta's economy. On the diplomatic front, Canadian Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly has announced plans to engage with her counterparts in allied nations, including the United Kingdom, Mexico, and various European Union members. The goal is to build a united front against potential U.S. tariffs, coordinating international responses to mitigate the economic fallout. This diplomatic initiative aims to foster collaboration among nations affected by the proposed tariffs and to develop collective strategies to counter their impact. On January 27, 2025, former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, who is campaigning to succeed Justin Trudeau as Canada's Prime Minister, unveiled a proposed list of retaliatory tariffs targeting U.S. goods. This list was crafted in response to President Trump's planned 25% tariffs on Canadian products. Freeland emphasized that Canada's countermeasures should be precise and impactful, identifying Florida's orange growers, Wisconsin's dairy producers, and Michigan's dishwasher manufacturers as potential targets. The proposal covers goods valued at around 200 billion Canadian dollars, approximately 139 billion US dollars. Freeland also suggested banning American firms from participating in Canadian federal procurement contracts and proposed organizing an international summit to coordinate responses to U.S. economic pressures. Prime Minister Trudeau has remained vocal in outlining Canada's position, stressing that U.S. tariffs would lead to increased costs for American consumers and disrupt critical supply chains. He has consistently highlighted the profound economic interdependence between Canada and the United States, pointing to the mutual benefits of maintaining open, tariff-free trade. These efforts reflect Canada's multi-pronged strategy to counter the potential imposition of U.S. tariffs, balancing immediate economic responses with diplomatic engagement and strategic public messaging. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, when it came into effect on July 1, 2020, is a comprehensive trade pact designed to strengthen economic ties among the three nations. The USMCA was established to promote free trade by reducing tariffs and enhancing economic integration across North America. Key features of the USMCA include expanded market access, ensuring that goods and services traded among the US, Mexico, and Canada benefit from preferential treatment, thereby facilitating smoother cross-border commerce. In the automotive sector, the agreement raised the regional content requirement for vehicles from 62.5% under NAFTA to 75% under the USMCA. This provision aims to stimulate greater production within North America to qualify for tariff-free status. The USMCA also introduced stricter labor and environmental standards. It includes provisions to enhance labor rights, particularly supporting collective bargaining in Mexico, as well as commitments to uphold environmental protections. Another significant addition is the inclusion of digital trade regulations, which prohibit customs duties on electronic transactions and ensure the free flow of data across borders. President Trump's proposal to impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico appears to contradict the fundamental principles of the USMCA, which is rooted in reducing trade barriers among its members. Such unilateral tariff measures could be interpreted as violations of the agreement, potentially leading to disputes under its established conflict resolution mechanisms. The relationship between Canada and the United States has evolved over more than 2 centuries, shaped by periods of conflict, cooperation, and increasing economic and cultural interconnectedness. In the early 19th century, tensions between the United States and British North America, what is now Canada, escalated into the War of 1812. Driven by ambitions of territorial expansion and the desire to assert its sovereignty, the U.S. launched an invasion of Canada. The war witnessed several key battles, including the American-led burning of York, present-day Toronto, and the retaliatory burning of Washington, D.C. by British forces. The conflict ended in a stalemate with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent in 1814, which reinstated the pre-war borders but left numerous issues unresolved. Despite its inconclusive outcome, the war played a crucial role in fostering a distinct Canadian identity and established a lasting peace between the two nations. Over time, the border between Canada and the U.S. became demilitarized, evolving into the world's longest undefended boundary. Economic ties between the two countries strengthened with the introduction of the Canadian-American Reciprocity Treaty in 1854, which encouraged free trade in natural resources like timber, coal, and fish. Although the U.S. terminated the treaty in 1866, it laid the foundation for future economic collaboration. In the 20th century, Canada and the U.S. deepened their economic partnership through agreements such as the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, in 1994. NAFTA created one of the world's largest free trade zones, fostering economic integration across North America. This agreement was later replaced by the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, in 2020, which modernized trade relations to address contemporary issues such as digital commerce, labor standards, and environmental protections. Military alliances between the two nations have also been pivotal. During World War II, Canada and the United States enhanced military cooperation through the creation of the Permanent Joint Board on Defense in 1940. This initiative established a framework for continental defense collaboration. The partnership continued during the Cold War with the establishment of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, in 1958, a binational organization tasked with aerospace warning and control across North America. These military alliances highlighted the shared security interests of both countries and underscored their commitment to mutual defense. Beyond economic and military ties, Canada and the United States share deep cultural and social connections. The two nations experience significant cross-border travel and migration, with approximately 400,000 people crossing the Canada-US border daily. This movement fosters strong personal relationships, promotes tourism, and facilitates business interactions. Additionally, both countries share linguistic similarities, common values, and influential popular culture, further strengthening their bond. At the time of this video's release, no official announcements have been made regarding the specific details of the proposed U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. Likewise, Canadian authorities have yet to provide concrete information about their planned countermeasures. However, it appears that Canada is strategically withholding the details of its response until the U.S. tariffs are officially enacted. This approach allows the Canadian government to thoroughly assess the situation and respond in a deliberate, well-considered manner. Regardless of the final terms of these trade measures, the rising tensions between the U.S. and Canada are already producing noticeable economic consequences. Both nations have long-standing political, economic, and trade relationships with deeply intertwined supply chains, shared industries, and substantial cross-border commerce. Any disruption to this partnership can trigger ripple effects across multiple sectors, potentially impacting businesses, workers, and consumers on both sides of the border. At this point, the future trajectory of these developments remains uncertain. The coming days and weeks will be critical in shaping the next steps for both governments and determining the potential impacts on trade, investment, and overall economic stability. As the situation continues to unfold, stakeholders in both countries will need to stay informed by closely monitoring official announcements and policy decisions to grasp the full scope of these changes. Thank you for watching this video. We truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you found this content insightful or thought-provoking, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to our channel to stay connected with our community. Your support means a lot to us.